right. So January's over, and I watched a lot of wild stuff this month. Some classics, some mind benders, and just some straight up fever dreams. So let's talk about it.
It was last October. It was raining, and I hit something.
So first up, I watched Juror Number Two. Clint Eastwood somehow directing, still at 93, which that alone is insane. The movie itself is a courtroom thriller, kind of like I would have likened it to like maybe like a modern 12 Angry Men. If you guys ever seen that, it's nothing flashy. It's just that like classic Clint Eastwood style. It's really tight, old school storytelling with a strong, like moral dilemma, I guess I could say. There's a man who's in the program, which I really like. But what's crazy about it is, that he originally planned to retire, if I'm correct, after his last movie, but somehow Warner Brothers was like, "We'll give you a truck full of money," and he was like, "All right, I'll do it." And what's crazy? One of my buddies is actually one of the guys in the courtroom, and then another character is this girl I went to high school with. So it was just this crazy, like, when you just see someone in school, you don't really know them, you know of them. So that was just weird. It was like, oh shit, that girl looks familiar. And then I was like, wait a second, oh my god. So I thought that was such a funny thing, but I would recommend it to everybody. It was a really good watch. So yeah.
Hear me, Odin.
Next on my list, I rewatched The Northman because, why the hell wouldn't I? It's this brutal, mythic Hamlet on like just pure testosterone. Every shot feels like it's ripped from this like Norse saga. It's weird, it's gnarly, and it's got Bjork as a witch. Like, what more could you want, honestly? Eggers always insists on like this real historical accuracy. So much that even apparently Viking urination habits were studied, which is really weird. Apparently Vikings peed a certain way. Cinema, baby, After The Northman, I watched Barry Lyndon by none other than the GOAT, Stanley Kubrick. But what I gotta say about this movie, it's really just a master class in like painterly, controlled shots. You don't really watch it, you almost like sink into it. It's like this experiential thing. It's like you're witnessing like a moving painting, basically. What's crazy about it too is they actually gave Kubrick like these like lenses from like NASA to shoot the movie with, and they must have had like the most goated focus puller of all time because they used natural candlelight in a lot of scenes, and honestly every single shot in that movie just looks like this 18th century painting. And while I was watching it, I was like, oh, so like this is where Wes Anderson got his style from. Like very locked down, controlled camera movement, very confidently shot, painterly. I keep using the word painterly, but that's like the best way to describe it. It's just like this like beautiful, immersive sort of thing. But it's like 3 hours long. It's really intense. Kind of have to plan your day around it, kind of thing. So, it's definitely not for everybody, but I think everyone needs to see it at least once in their life to truly sink into that experience and like see what that time was like, But 10 out of 10. One of the best movies ever made. You gotta see it once. After this intensity and all that stuff. Like, I just threw in something as a goof. It's called The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray. And it's basically this guy who thinks he's in this, like, interactive spy show, but it's real. And, like, he has no idea his life is in danger, like, the whole time. And it's just so funny because it's loosely based on a novel, but the whole movie literally just feels like an excuse to let Bill Murray just, like, do his thing. It was a much needed break of, like, levity and, like, comedy, because, like, I feel like comedy is such an essential element to movies, and, like, I just hope they never go away. Like, nobody says, like, they want less comedy movies, you know? So I really hope we can return to that, like, Zucker era of, like, spoofy movies like Leslie Nielsen and, like, do you know what I mean? Like, that era of movies is just so great. I love that, like, 80s-y kind of spoof comedy. They need to bring it back. Bring back scary movies. Fucking do whatever you have to. Like, I need more comedy in my life. And then suddenly David Lynch passed away on January 15th. And from that point, I kind of just sat and was like, maybe I should reevaluate what I'm going to watch this month. So I decided to basically delve into the rest of his filmography that I had never seen, which was most of it. If we're being honest, I had only ever seen Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet back in high school. But that's one of those things when you're a young age and, like, you don't really have a grasp of, like, meditative, surrealist storytelling. Like, I'm kind of glad that I experienced them now, because it's almost like I would have gotten frustrated by the surrealist, abstract elements, but I don't know. Things are meant to happen when they happen, and I feel like I was meant to see these films at this age, just a little bit more wizened. And I don't even know really where to begin. I went deep. I saw Mulholland Drive, Elephant Man, Wild at Heart, Lost Highway. The only one that I didn't see was that Disney film that he made in the 90s. I still gotta watch that, but I didn't get around to it. But I just love the way he uses, like, dream logic and, like, infuses this, like, almost Hollywood nightmare into his movies. Like, there's, like, this underbelly of, like, darkness, this undercurrent through all of his films. And, you know, Mulholland Drive, from what I understand, was initially supposed to be a TV show, but ABC rejected it, funny enough, and then he turned it into a movie. And weirdly enough, it's, like, one of his easier movies to follow in that sense. Like, it's not as, like, it's still very Lynchian and weird and abstract, but it's, like, easier to follow. Like, it's almost like you know what it's saying. Of course, there's still that part of me that, like, went on YouTube and, like, looked up, like, ending explained videos and stuff like that. But I mean, you can't not with those movies. Like, you just want to hear other people's interpretations, and, like, that's honestly, like, half the fun. Is, like, it's almost like everyone who sees a movie all sees a different movie, and, like, it's never been more true with David Lynch. I'm not gonna do a ranking or anything like that. I think that shit is so dumb when you see, like, a bunch of nobodies who, like, don't even make movies, like, ranking the movies, like, objectively. I like to say, like, what my favorite is. Basically, I did see The Elephant Man. It was probably Lynch's most, like, normal movie, but still, it's so devastating, and Sean Hurt just gives this, like, soul-crushing performance. It's really beautiful and heartbreaking, and the cinematographer on that was actually who he worked on The Innocents by Jack Clayton, which was in my November video. So that was a cool little bit of trivia I learned when, you know, looking into the movies. And Wild at Heart, which is like this Wizard of Oz hijacked by a fucking fever dream. Nick Cage and Laura Dern. It's crazy to think he's younger than me in that movie, and he still looks old as shit. Like, it's so weird. Willem Dafoe is just this disgusting fucking rapist character. Cage sings all the songs in the movie, which was like a nice little touch. But to delve into like the plot lines of these films is literally impossible. All I'm gonna say is David Lynch made truly experiential films that I think anyone who loves movies need to experience, because he delves into like almost like the unconscious mind in a way. It's like you don't fully understand it, but it's like it's almost like what it makes you feel rather than like what they're about. So I'm sure I'll revisit them in the future. But yeah, to just try and begin to explain these movies is just like, it just kind of terrified me to try and like give some kind of like analytical. So it was just nice to go back and appreciate him and just take a few days to appreciate someone that we lost, because we really did lose a great artist and contributor to cinema, like the cathedral of cinema, I guess you could say. Lost Highway feels kind of like Mulholland Drive's like evil twin, but that movie makes even less sense. So it was just kind of like, wait, what? He like turns into another guy halfway through the movie randomly with no explanation, and then he turns back into the Bill Pullman. It's just so, yeah. Like I have a love-hate relationship with his movies, because like there's that part of my brain that just always wants to try and like explain away everything, and you just simply can't. It just goes underneath your fucking like the ridges in your brain and stays there, and he just sears visual images into your mind. And apparently he was actually inspired by O.J. Simpson's trial, so that's a little trivia for him. But yeah, just a moment of silence, because we really lost a great, you know. Check out us for films. Next, I dove into some J-horror. The 1997 film by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, Cure. And this movie fucked me up. Like, it actually made me so, like, psychologically, like, it stayed with me for days, because it's just this slow burn, almost hypnotic, like, literally hypnotic, because, like, it has to play with that, but, like, the way they make you feel hypnotized just by watching it was just so insane. It feels like Seven if it got infected with, like, more existential dread. You never quite see the like horror, but you like feel it. I don't know how to describe it. It's probably one of the best movies I've seen recently. It came out the year I was born, which is a nice little, like, I just love movies like that come out in 97. But Kiyoshi Kurosawa, the director, actually said it was inspired by a Japanese recession and this creeping feeling of hopelessness, which makes it really even more unsettling. There's like this plausibility factor to it that is just so unsettling. And if that movie didn't fuck me up enough, I immediately followed that up with another Kiyoshi Kurosawa film called Pulse. And holy hell, this might actually be the most existentially terrifying horror movie I've seen, like, ever. Because it's a ghost story, but it's not just about ghosts. It's actually about the internet. And it's basically described as like this black hole of loneliness, which, if anything, it's more relevant now than when it was created. Now, there's an American remake, too, by Wes Craven in 2006, but it's terrible because it completely missed the point. The original is about subtle dread, and the remake was just like jump scares and bad CGI ghosts, and it completely missed the point, basically. But still, I recommend both because, Wes Craven, he's still like an iconic director, but definitely recommend Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen, and there's not a single jump scare, or it's just all just like pure atmospheric dread, and it's a masterpiece. I'm going to be delving into so many more foreign films because it's almost like every time I watch a new movie, I'm like, God, there's so many movies. Like, I get overwhelmed. It's the same thing with like music. It's like, there's so many songs. Like, I can't listen to them all. Like, but that's part of the fun, is just like unearthing these things that are new to you that, someone had seen like a million times, or, you know what I mean?
So old, it's new.
Definitely recommend those J horror films to you guys if you can stomach the pure existential dread. And then there's A Real Pain, Jesse Eisenberg's latest film. And he's one of those people I never thought would be like a filmmaker or a director, but it's so cool to see certain actors like evolve and realize like they want to say something more than just be like a paint in somebody else's canvas. Like, they want to create the whole thing. They want to have an authorial voice in a project. This one really kind of snuck up on me. It came out on Hulu, so I just threw it on. It's about two cousins, him and Kira Culkin. But, it's really just about grief and trauma and how different people cope and how personalities can clash. Culkin's character is this very sort of sarcastic, unpredictable, but kind of self-destructive character. Like, there's a line in the movie, he says, like, you light up every room you're in, and then you just shit on everything. And it's one of those things where like he doesn't see his own charm, and you could tell he has such a negative self-talk, which is honestly something I kind of identified with. But yeah, he kind of starts to unravel because they're on this like Holocaust tour, but they're staying in these like lush hotels and, eating all these nice foods, juxtaposed with like the horrors that their grandparents went through and things like that. So it's just like the title says, it delves into pain and how different people process the same thing, the same pains. Like, some people just cope differently. It's one of those movies that's like really small, just hits really big. Culkin definitely deserved his award because, I'm not gonna lie, he kind of made me tear up a little bit. It's really just like a really personal reflection on what I feel like Jesse Eisenberg feels a lot of the time, being his like neurotic sort of self. Well, I don't know him, but I imagine he's a lot like the character he plays, because he plays it so naturalistically. But yeah, definitely recommend it. And yeah, this movie rocked my world. My mother showed it to me. It's called Dead End by William Wyler. Funny enough, halfway through, I realized I had already seen it when I was like a little kid, but again, it's one of those things, like, everything just goes over your head at that age. It's a 1937 crime drama that, it's like this total time machine. You got Humphrey Bogart as Babyface. He's like this ruthless, cold gangster that returns to his home neighborhood that he grew up in. It's gritty and atmospheric, and you can really feel the like class divide between the rich and the poor. And funny enough, it introduced the world to the Dead End Kids. It's a group of real life street kids that became so popular that Hollywood just kept putting them in movies for years. And Wyler, the perfectionist, supposedly made the actors do like endless takes until they got that streetwise attitude, yeah, just right. But it's such a masterpiece. I'm definitely gonna watch it at least once a year. It has like this perfect mix of like gritty realism, social commentary, and of course Bogart just doing his thing. He's just goated. Like, I don't have any more words than that. It's a masterpiece. William Wyler is truly one of the best to ever do it, and I'm going to continue to delve into his filmography.
We are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks, and it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no?
And finally, I finished off the month with My Dinner with Andre. It's just literally two guys, Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory, literally just talking over dinner, and that's it. But, you know, I watch a lot of podcasts, which is basically just that anyways, like a feature-length conversation. So I kind of just sunk into it really easily. I didn't get bored. There's no explosions or plot twists or anything like that, but it's pure conversation. And yet somehow it's riveting. It's like you're eavesdropping on two brilliant minds discussing art, life, meaning, and whether or not modern life has made us numb. And I know I already said this about another movie, but it's almost like it's more relevant now than when it came out, because all of the things they talk about have only begun to be exasperated by the modern times, basically. Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory actually based the film on their real-life conversations, which is funny. Apparently, they just sat and, like, recorded their conversations and fleshed it out into, like, a more structured screenplay. So, that's funny. And fun fact, Wallace Shawn is also the voice of Rex in Toy Story. So, it's kind of hilarious when you think about it. It's just, like, Rex having an existential crisis at dinner. I was like, I knew I recognized his voice, and then I was like, oh wait, that's Rex from Toy Story. So yeah, it's kind of funny because they thought nobody would watch it, and then now it's just like this cult classic. So it's kind of how it goes, yeah. So yeah, my January was stacked. A lot of psychological breakdowns, dream logic, and just vibes, man. I think my favorites were probably, I would say, Mulholland Drive, The Northman, of course, because it's goated. I would probably say Cure or Pulse. I would say Cure, because, man, J-horror, man, they just, Japanese, Korean cinema, like, they just do things differently. So yeah, just curious, what did you guys watch this month? Any recommendations? I had someone comment in the last video and put those in my list, so please leave a comment if you can. And yeah, I'll see you guys in February. All right.